call is now being recorded.
Welcome to MyBluesRoots.com. Palmdale Slim here, and we have a very, very special guest today. We're meeting with Joe Louis Walker, a four-time BMA winner. He's been nominated for 2 BMAs this year, and that's what we're here to talk about. Welcome to MyBluesRoots.com, Joe. It's great to have you here.
Well, I appreciate it, Sam. Thank you for having me.
I want to talk, obviously, about your latest album. Just came out in October, Everybody Wants a Piece. It got nominated for Best Rock Blues Album of the Year with the Blues Hall of Fame. And I'd like to know, what does that album mean to you right now? What is it that's special about this album for you?
Well, one of the things that's special about it is that it's yeah, I've had a few nominations from the blues years that good.
Yeah, I thought like 47, I think.
yeah, and I've never been nominated for rock blues because they just started the category a few years ago.
I was wondering about that. Okay.
So I was telling my wife and some of my friends, I've never been. I like a year ago. I'd like to be nominated for rock blues. I mean, how many 66-year-old cats are nominated for rock blues?
Yeah, that's pretty cool, huh? Yeah, because how young is Joe Bonamassa was nominated? He's a pretty young guy, right?
Joe's about I don't know how old he is. I think he's about 20 years younger than me. I don't know.
Yeah.
But at any rate, it made me feel young, and also being nominated for contemporary blues artists, it sort of always makes me feel young. I feel and that's what I try to do. I try to make music sometimes that's sort of contemporary in the context of reaching younger people, because if the blues is going to stay alive, it's going to have people that keep generating the music. Exactly.
And it's funny, I think when you came along in the 80s, everybody was saying, how are the blues going to stay alive? And then people like you and others showed up, and obviously that's a cycle that always continues, right? Who do you like right now that's coming up?
Oh man, it's so many people. Jesus, I mean, it's so many people. I think I think the blues legacy is in good hands. I just hope that they get heard. But I listen to everybody from Jericka Singleton to Ian Siegel out of England, people like that. Cass Hawkins out of England. Selwyn Birchwood, of course, is a real one of my favorites of all. And you have the big name ones. You got Little Truck, you got Eric Susan, you got Gary Clark Jr. And Joe. You mentioned Joe. You have a lot of young people, who are who like, God bless Joe for wearing the mantle of the blues. Saying, I'm out here to promote the blues. It's one thing to play the music; it's another thing to be out there promoting it, like B.B. King did. And I think Joe's doing that. I think he's doing that. And he doesn't have to. He could easily go with that kind of success.
Yeah.
And Gary Clark Jr. too, to a degree, but I haven't heard him say as much about blues. But I'm sure that we'll be hearing more about that from him. Because it's what they are sort of hanging their hats on. But it's great to have someone out there verbally, committing to the blues and bringing light on all the old guys who aren't here to enjoy any of the monetary rewards or accolades that it gets.
Yeah, because everyone's doing their songs, and some of these guys are still around, and they need the help. And that's a big issue in the blues. Let's get back to talking about the album, though. I really enjoyed. There was one particular thing that I heard that I really liked. It's the transition from the song "One Sunny Day" into that instrumental gospel blues, because you go from this real rockin' song, and then all of a sudden we start hearing the organ. And it sounds to me like you're using a wah-wah pedal with your guitar or something. But, I mean, I love that transition, and that kind of just summed up the whole album for me, because you're kind of playing just whatever you want to play, and I really enjoyed that.
Those are songs we had been playing. But, I mean, the Gospel Blues was a song we had been playing quite a bit. It's time checks and playing it live, and people seem to like it because it sort of builds, it's got a It's got a
Yeah.
story to tell, and the story is gospel and blues married together, which it really is. I mean, they're cousins. And so it
Sure.
sort of put it in the music without saying anything, any word, and it sort of worked.
Yeah. I really was surprised by it. The first time I listened to the album, I assumed there was going to be lyrics and that it was a gospel tune. And then obviously it was what it is. And I really, really enjoyed that. It was a real fun thing to listen to. I'm sure it's a great live because you can probably stretch out a little bit on it, huh?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Let's talk about that because, as you just said, gospel and blues are very connected, and obviously through you, you spent many years singing gospel before you became a blues musician. What was it about gospel that you loved, and what was it that made you move into the blues genre that you're in now?
Well, let's see. I was going to gospel churches with my grandmothers in the late 50s, early 60s. And then playing guitar in 62, say 1962, and playing all kinds of music. So I really played all kinds of music, and playing with gospel groups, in the 60s, it's sort of like, I always call it like YMCA of music. You go there and you learn how to sing, and you learn how to emote, you learn how to project, and you learn your range, and it's a good proving ground to get you, and it's a great place to get confidence, and it's not like
there's always the audiences. I guess audiences tend to be kinder than they would be in clubs, probably.
I think what it is that the art it basically is no audience. The audience is part of the group, and the group is part of the audience. Because
you're right.
You do a program with gospel groups. We call them programs. You do a program on Saturday night and do church on Sunday. It's 6 or 7 gospel groups. And so when the other gospel groups are on stage, you supporting them. Yeah. And when you get on stage, but there's also it's a good natured rivalry because you want to get house. You want to get the house going. So everybody does a little something, but it's all in 9 times out of 10, it's all in the good natured rivalry. It's a little bit different from popular music where, units sold and this and that and the other, everything is pretty competitive for a different reason in pop music. And so, I mean, in the 60s, I was playing quite a bit and playing blues and stuff. Nothing happened. In the 70s, you couldn't get hardly any blues played. And I was playing gospel from 75 to 85, nothing but gospel. That's when I just played gospel straight, nothing else. And then I came back to blues in 85 and started making records and touring and what have you, and becoming known in this, what I do here. Right.
Well, you've accomplished an awful lot in your career, and you've been around for a long time, but it looks like you've got a lot left in you. What do you think is, obviously you're probably going out on tour with the new album to promote that, and let's talk about that. What are your plans right now?
Well, in the middle of January to the beginning of February, I go to an island called Mystique, and play a blues festival there, and we play on an island called Beckwell, St. Vincent, and it's for charity, the Bethel Charles Mick Jagger Foundation. They got a charity. We do that for a couple of weeks, and then come home for a little while. Then I go to Israel, to Tel Aviv, and play around for about 4 or 5 days, and I produce a band there called the Blues Rebels. And then I go to the USA Artists. USA Artists, which is a foundation that distributes the Ford Foundation loans, the Ford Foundation grants, and Rockefeller and the Oliver grants. And unfortunately, I've been very extremely fortunate to be the recipient of the Oliver Foundation grant this year. So they made me a fellow.
I saw that, and it looks like you're going to put that grant to some really, really cool use. I'm very big on music in the schools. Tell me what your plans are for that.
Well, what we plan to do is we plan to begin a foundation and call it Musical Path for younger people that who may not have access to concerts, may not have access to a musical lesson or access to an instrument. Try to be able to expedite that and to be able to without any cost to them be able for them to try to see if they want to go on a musical path, and if so, then maybe point them in the right direction, get them maybe even hook them up with a mentor or something, something that gets them some information to where they can proceed on their journey, if that's what they want to do. And if you don't want to do that, that's okay,
Yeah.
But if you do want to try it and you say, hey, you know what, this is something that it makes me happy, it brings other people joy, then hey, give it a shot.
Right. And that's what music's all about, right? Yeah.
That's right.
I know you spent you grew up in the Bay Area, and you just mentioned you were playing a lot of music in the '60s, and I know part of your heritage is that you were part of that San Francisco rock scene. I think you roomed with Michael Bloomfield for a while, and what do you remember most about those days?
Well, I remember that everybody was very idealistic, and everybody was very socially conscious. When I was a teenager, people, well, just to be quite honest, certain people couldn't vote in this country when I was a kid, and couldn't go to certain places. And to be a part, of that generation, that came of that generation where I grew up, I was part of Bread and Roses, Mimi Farina, Joan Byers' sister's organization. I was a part of different organizations trying to, to be socially conscious and to take part in any way I could to sort of, I don't know, like I said, being idealistic, we were trying to change not only ourselves, but some of what we've seen as the ills in the world: Vietnam War, racism, sexism, homelessness, things of this nature. And so we would do concerts, and what I remember is mostly of the free concerts we used to do, and things like that, and going into prisons, going into mental institutions, and doing benefits for blindness foundations, things of this nature, hepatitis awareness, battered women, animal rights, on and on and on and on. That's probably, I think, one of the best legacies of my generation. And that just went from the biggest stars down to the smallest stars. And from the everyday people, Blacks Lives Stone used to say, to the highest up politicians, people were, dreaming to try to make a better world.
And there's so many things going on now. As I was listening to you, it seems like there's a lot of things that are going on now that people need to pay attention to. I'm not so sure we have as much support out there as we need. It feels like it was a special generation back there when you guys were doing all of that, and we've all benefited from that, I think.
I feel that there's always something that comes along that it seems like it's insurmountable. But usually when the people are given the information to make a decision, they make the right decision. And if they're fooled, only when they're fooled, they make the wrong decision or lied to.
Right.
I always think of that Abraham Lincoln saying, you can fool some people sometime. Peter Toshon by Marley, but you can't fool all the people all the time. So, that's proven. That's been proven over and over and over again. And so, we say we might have bumps in the road, but it's not going to, stop the times moving forward. The time's going to move forward.
How do you, everything you were just talking about, the feeling that you have about these issues that are important to you, how do you take some of those things that are important to you and put those into the songs that you write?
Well, some songs have already been written to deal with them, and some songs aren't. And I think that for someone like me, what I try to do is put my experience into the songs. And that just doesn't mean the adverse experience. That could mean, good experience also, or that could mean an observation and observation and opinion, or just, stating fact. But I try not to preach to people because everybody comes to a destination by different routes a lot of times. And so, and it's best for people to find, if somebody can, say your opinion, your experiences farther to the left, somebody else's experience farther to the right. It's best when somebody can, if you can meet and somewhere, and they can sort of experience where you're coming from, you can experience where they're coming from, and then I think it makes it a little bit easier to come to see a person, why a person holds the position and the opinion that they do, as opposed to just dismissing them. You know, because when you just dismiss somebody, right, you do yourself this service, because you don't get a chance to hear how they come to the conclusion that they come to, even though you think you're right, you think they're wrong. I guarantee you, if you hear some things, you can say, oh, well, I can see why someone would say something like that, but instead of the reason that they're saying it may be a little bit out of fear or a little bit out of just a little bit of paranoia, as opposed to it being a fact, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And you might learn something if you just...
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, you mentioned about, that you try to put your experience to work for you. And as I was looking at your website, my gosh, you seem to have your experience of playing with various musicians is pretty far and wide. I mean, you played with Muddy Waters. You even, I think I saw that you played with Thelonius Monk. Who were some of the people that were special to you that you played with that, maybe you were sitting there on stage with them and saying, wow, this is really great?
Well, to say one, to me, if you're on a stage and you open your ears, it doesn't have to be somebody extremely famous.
Sure.
In fact, I think, the most fun I had was playing with people that weren't extremely famous. When you're playing with somebody extremely famous, everybody is so amped up, they expect, they're going to see the Beatles on that Sullivan show. And in reality, it's just people up there having fun. But
it's just guys playing,
Yeah, some of the biggest fun I had playing with people like Wayne Shorter or John Mayall, or Otis Rush, or Gabe Mouth Brown, because I'm a son, or Scotty Moore, Jordan Ayers, because I'm a fan. I'm a fan of this music, and when I get a chance to play with someone like Scotty, or sing with the Jordan Ayers, or to play with someone like Robert Lockwood Jr., rest his soul, or James Cotton. Yeah. And I know I'm playing with history, with BB, I know I was playing with history, and that, or play with Lafayette Lee. How many guys have played with Lafayette Lee? How many people Lafayette Lee? Lafayette Lee played as much piano on those Chuck Berry records as Johnny Johnson did. A lot of people don't know, or Matt Murphy played guitar on all those Chuck Berry songs, and Willie Dixon played the bass on all those Chuck Berry songs. A lot of people don't know that.
Because they were all at Chess Records. Yeah.
And for me to be able to play with someone like DJ Fontana that played on all the Elvis hits, and for DJ to tell me, stand right there, Joe, so I can watch you, so I can play with your movements like he played with Elvis. You know what I mean?
That's it.
Just, I'm a fan of that, and so I got to think.
I hear what you're saying, though. They don't have to be famous. It's just somebody that you admire for whatever reason, famous or not, right? Yeah. Well, tell me about your band. I know that you've got a band. You guys are going out on tour, so tell me, brag about your band.
Well, on the record, we got myself, Lenny L.B. Bradford on bass and vocals, and Byron Cage on drums and vocals, and we have Philip Young on keys and vocals. And we did all the records. That's us on the record, and Paul Nelson, producer, played on a cut also as well, produced it. And we a lot of the songs we have been doing sound checks and just sort of testing out, and some of the things we had written for the record there, and so it's a pretty tight unit.
Yeah, it sounds like you're going to be getting a lot of work next year, so that's great. I also understand that you won the Living Blues 2015 award for guitar playing, And that must feel pretty good after you've been in the business for as long as you've been to be as as popular as you are. And how does that make you feel when at this stage in your career when you're still able to get that kind of recognition?
Makes me want to pick up my guitar and play. No, it's cool. It's great being recognized, and to be honest, like I say, it's great. It's really good to be recognized when you've been playing for a while, and it's good to know that as many gestations as I've been through. If you put on one Joe Louis Walker record, it's nothing like the other Joe Louis Walker record.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah,
it drives record companies crazy.
Yeah, I know.
But that's sort of my style. Willie
right.
Dixon told me Willie Dixon told me a long time ago, Joe, I listen to your style and say you're all over the place. He says, but that's your style. Don't just try to be a 12-bar blues guy. Just be who you are. And so that's what I am. I'm influenced by everybody from Scotty Moore and Chuck Berry to Elmo James and Son House to Muddy Waters to Albert Lee to Keith Richards. I'm influenced by Wayne Bennett and Bobby Womack and Johnny Johnson and Jimmy Johnson. I'm sort of all those,
Right. Well, you can hear that on the albums. You're right, because every song you don't know what to expect. You could be jumping into any, style of blues or rock or whatever it might be. You mentioned James Cotton, and I was looking back at some stuff getting prepared for our discussion, and I didn't realize it had been 20 years since James Cotton made that album, Deep in the Blues. I was like, I didn't think it was that old. But you played on that along with Charlie Haden from the jazz world. He played with Ornette Coleman. And tell me about that project, because to me that was, just like you're talking about, that was three guys that are very kind of different, bringing a whole lot of different influences to one group, and it was really interesting.
Well, we'd be remiss if we didn't say a big part of that was our good friend, rest of soul, James Maxwell on piano.
Right.
A big part. So, but it was cool because I played with Cotton. We recorded on each other's albums, and I hadn't played with Charlie, but I had been around Charlie, and we bonded pretty good. But I knew Maxwell, of course, and so it was really easy because what the producer John Snyder did was have us just put us in the studio and have us all do a solo song, and then have us all play on the stuff. But then, they had me sing on some stuff because Cotton's voice, he wasn't feeling well. And so it really came out like loose because we did like 26 songs in 2 days. So, it was loose, and they took the best ones. They didn't put them all out. And so it was really spontaneous. It wasn't a whole lot of rehearsal, but we didn't have to because I played with Cotton, on a bunch of occasions. I had played with him. And with Charlie, it was great because a lot of people don't know Charlie. Haden started with country music and became, he was Little Charlie then with his family on radio in Oklahoma. And he comes out of that Oklahoma Triangle, Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, that music scene. So he knows all that music. And
right. He did that Ozark thing on there, right? He did a solo on there. Yeah. And so it worked good. We all got along together fine, and we won a Grammy on it. I know, and I got to tell you, one of my favorite songs on that whole album. I know it's a Cotton album, but you doing Two Trains Running, it's just like that's a really great cover of that tune. I've always enjoyed that, and
thank you.
I think that shows. And you're welcome. And I think that shows that you might be doing rock and blues right now, but you've got those blues roots pretty strong, it sounded like to me. So I've always really appreciated that album. I also read that Lightnin Hopkins threw you off the stage. What's that all about?
Well, it wasn't unpersonal. It's just that I used to drive Bloomfield around, and Bloomfield would go sit in with all the older blues guys because he knew them all. And he played piano when we played with Lightnin. And then Lightnin would play piano, and Michael would play guitar. So when Lightnin playing the piano, Michael would grab him for the guitar, and I went to get the guitar, and Lightnin just told me, no. Get your ass off the stage. It was all good, man.
Yeah. Lightnin was he was a character. I understand. Well, I got one final question for you. You've been around for a long time. You've been around, obviously, playing blues since at least since the mid '80s and recording. How has all of this change in the technology changed things for somebody like you? I mean, it's not anywhere near the same as it used to be, but you just produced an album and put it out in October, and it's doing really well. So, what are the kinds of things you've had to learn and change in order to keep yourself viable out there?
Well, everything's different now. I was just reading an article. A great producer, T-Bone Burnett, wrote a nice article. I think it was in the Huffington Post about you could be in a garage with your three friends, 25 years ago or whatever, and boom, you get a contract, make a record, and in 9 months, 9 months, you got good hit, good melody. Your record sells 500,000 copies.
Mm-hmm.
You get them in the cellar. Today, to equal that 500,000 copies, today in streaming, you have to get 1.5 million streams just to equal that 500,000 copies. And out of that 1.5 million streams, you might, if you're real lucky, get $1,000.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
that's a big difference nowadays because it's hard I feel sad. I feel sort of apprehensive for younger people coming up in music because it's such a harsh reality that even if you get to the top of the top, I mean, you're talking about small return on a major investment,
right.
a major investment of your life and your time. So it's you musicians like myself, I hate to put it like this, but a lot of guys will be sitting and writing songs. Well, right now, a lot of guys who would be sitting and writing songs are now writing and trying to get their numbers up on YouTube, get their numbers up on Facebook, get their numbers up on Twitter so that they can have a lot of likes and this, and that's unfortunate because it's sort of like, and I hate to say this, it's sort of like the music doesn't count, the numbers do. Whereas the numbers always did count if you were going to be really successful with your music, but now it's really sad when you think about it. If the music doesn't count, well, then what are you listening to?
Right.
What are you going to be able to listen to? Because some things aren't going to be played. So then that's the only apprehension, the serious apprehension that I have with technology, and my other apprehension with technology is that's just not in you. That's in just about everything. And so it's and not to put a blanket on anything, but that's you ask me how do I navigate the terrain today, and that's one of the big things is that a lot of times you really don't want to be dealing with those aspects, but you have to.
Right.
And you think,
I've seen a lot of that on Facebook where guys are asking, hey, if I can't get enough likes, the record company doesn't want to help me out. So, it's almost like you're standing there with your cup in your hand just because you want to play some music,
Yeah, well, my point is that even with the record company, even with success, the level of success now to be successful is pretty astronomical, and the chances are sort of bleak. But I think that there is going to be some rectification. Playing live it always helps, but there's another set of issues now with a lot of things that have been happening in this crazy world we live in. So it's just like we're in some sort of rapid eye movement music wise and living wise. It's every day is new.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. Well, It's great that you're still going strong after all of these years. And if anybody's listening to this, because I think the BMA nominations packages are going out right now, so make sure you vote. And Joe, good luck to you on that. And I really appreciate you joining us here, and thanks for joining us today on mybluesroots.com.
I thoroughly, surely appreciate it, and keep on doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. Merry Christmas.
Okay, Joe, thanks for your time. And by the way, happy birthday to you, too. I understand your birthday's Christmas Day. So
Yep.
have a good one.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.